Hiya guys, it's Nigel here from Nigel's Modelling Bench. I did a review on this yesterday, and I think everybody knows I was really impressed with it. So the only bit I don't like about the kit is the tyres, and the Model Collect tyres are beautiful. So I have currently got modified Revell wheels with Model Collect tyres on them, casting or moulding so I can make some resin tyres. I've also measured up, and these tyres are actually too tall in scale. So yeah, so the Model Collect tyres are a lot nicer. They've got the lettering around them, and they've got the actual bulge on the sidewalls. These are just straight, quite featureless. So hopefully that will work. Now, I wasn't going to start this, and I got up this morning and did a little bit of work on the C141. We can see now we've got primer on there. Now that's another lot of primer after a quick rub down. So we really are getting there now, and you can see that it's still got sinking up there. So I don't know what to do about this, but we'll just stick with it, and then when it sort of stops sinking, then we'll carry on and get it primed and painted, because it's nearly finished, to be honest. So I did make a start on this. So yeah, I got up this morning and decided to build the chassis, which is pretty complex. If you look in the instructions, there's quite a lot of work to do, and then you've got all these suspension arms going together. And as I said in the what do you call it, the unboxing, all the different versions, you've got the version 1 and version 2, and obviously this is all with the suspension drooped because it's lifted up on its rams, and this is all with it sat on its wheels. So you've got all these parts and bits of greeblies. So all these bits and pieces and that, and spares for your greeblies for your spares box. So I've basically got up to there. I've made up all these suspension parts, and as you can see here, when you come to I'm doing version 1 with it sat on its wheels. When you come to here, you can see there's 3 number 8s here, there's 3 number 10s there, and they've got 14, 16, 22, 26 going around. So what I've done, I made the suspension units up and put them in little pots with numbers on, so I can see which is which. And that's just best way to make sure you don't make any mistakes, because once they're glued on and set and everything, you know, you're going to damage them getting them off, because they are pretty flimsy. And what I intend to do is start by 4 corners, get that all set up nice and square, and then I'll just put the others in between and get them all touching as well. So that's something I'll be doing now next. I've also gone on and put together the main torpedo tube, or missile tube should I say, and it's a lovely fit. Down this side, the seam is down the middle of that rib structure there, so I guess a brush full of Mr. Servicer in there and that'll be that sorted. And then this side, just a case of manipulating it and getting it all level and everything, so you got, you know, so it's not too much out around. And so I'll leave that to dry for a few hours, and then we'll work on that. And I've also built up some other little bits and pieces here. Just this is the hydraulic ram for the front. There's a fuel tank, there's a box of some sort, and then we've got this frame here which is going to support the rear end. So that's what we've done there today. So that is today's work, and along with the C141. So I'm going to get on and do some more suspension work, and then I'll see you in a minute. Right then guys, so there we go. There's all the suspension arms are on. Everything's all pretty square. I've got all the little tiny steering arms on there. Got it sat on my parallel blocks, and basically what you're looking for is to have all the hubs touching, all be sort of straight this way, and all be square. At the end of the day, if you get any issues in the back of the wheels, they are a very tight fit. There's a 5mm bore in there. Basically they're a very tight fit. I think I should probably open them up a bit, and then you'll have a bit of wobble room, and then you can just put a drop of glue in there, put them on, get them all between these parallel blocks, get all the wheels vertical and parallel with each other, and then it'll look great. There's nothing worse than having, like, you know, one wheel like this, one wheel like this, and having it all higgledy-piggledy. It needs all to be nice and straight, unless of course you're going to modify your model and put some steering in there. So so that's that done. You can see the detail on this kit is quite incredible. For 72nd scale it is, and I think the Model Collect one's even better. But yeah, this is quite incredible. All these little tiny steering arms and suspension arms and everything. And you might see that the cleanup isn't perfect. I haven't done an amazing job of it, basically because I know from my experience with the 35th scale ones you can't really see any of it. So once those massive wheels and tyres go on, and then you've got all your mud guards and everything, you can't really see much of this. It's all more sort of for the fun of building, really. And it is fun. It's very enjoyable. I love putting chassis together like this. So next bit now is going to be building up these differential units with the bash plates that go beneath them, and then they're going to go across, as you can see here, they're going to go across the bottom of the chassis there, which is just going to sort of make everything nice and stiff. So yeah, if you don't have any parallel bars, these are just two sort of 20mm square aluminium bars. It's worth getting some. I mean, I need to clean these up. They've got some stuff on them which would affect their squareness, to be honest. But yeah, it's worth having, because you can just lay them down. When I built the chassis, I was able to just glue all the chassis together and then put a couple of rubber bands on it, just clamp it down onto that, make sure it's straight, make sure it's not twisted, make sure it's flat and not bowed, and yeah, it's worth doing. And if you're building like a 24 scale truck here or something, you can always tape a rule down in between the chassis rails or something like that. I mean, this is too wide to go in there, but you can tape a rule to the chassis rails, clamp all that up, and then get it all in there nice and square. So there we go. So that's that, and now I'm going to let that literally harden overnight. Right here, right now, it is Monday the 30th, so 1st of October tomorrow. I must get that draw done for you guys as well. So yeah, basically I'll leave that overnight to go hard, and then start playing with it again in the morning. I think in the meantime I'll see if I can do some more on the C141, and go from there. Right then guys, here we go. It's actually 10 days later now, and you can see I've got a bit done and got the diffs on and everything. I've also built up the launch rail, and that is just literally clipped onto the back of the frame like so. We've moved on a bit now. It's the 10th of October, so it's been drying for 10 days basically, well 9 days after I glued these on. I want to go through the instructions and give you guys some tips on a few things I've learned, and if I build another one, which I may well do, I will change my build sequence, well not my build sequence, the way things are done. And it could be that if you've got the Zvezda kit, maybe the instructions are different and they tell you to do it the way I'm going to discuss. So basically, putting the chassis rails together, I want to check we're not too glossy here. No, we're fine. Just basically putting all this together. Yeah, all this is fine. Go on, do all that. Put all your transmission, everything in, and then you're adding all this in. That's all fine. And then you're going to build up your suspension units. Now, whether you go for version 1 or version 2, remember, version 1 is wheels down with it sat on its wheels. Sorry. Jacks up with it sat on its wheels. Version 2 is with the jacks down and it's lifted up so the suspension sags and the wheels are hanging. So basically, either way, whatever you do, when you come to this section here, 28 or 29, whichever one you're doing, as you can see, they're telling you to glue the suspension arms here, these assemblies here, and all the steering arms and everything onto the chassis. Now, my advice here now is to... Oh, there's one thing I want to talk about as well. I want to talk about this piece. Is to, when you glue these on, only glue the upper mount. Only glue them here. Don't glue them down the bottom at all. Just glue them there and let them sit there, and they'll be all floppy and wobbly. But that's fine. Then let that dry and go hard. Build up your diff assemblies here, which your differentials are in there, and then they glue on top like these C20 parts. These are C20s here. And then you've got, there's one odd one in the middle, which is F51, so that's the one with the shorter hubs, that's the ones with the undriven wheels. So basically, when you glue those in, you've got a pair of holes that go onto a pair of pins on the suspension arms. So if you've glued them on and you've got them slightly off, or they may be perfectly parallel, let's get rid of that. They may be perfectly parallel. Why won't it sit up straight? Because of that front suspension arm. It's a bit strange. Right, so you've got these two arms here. So you may have them perfectly parallel, but they may be forward and aft, and there's a couple of slots in the chassis that these diffs have to go into. So basically, if you don't glue the bottom at all, when you slip these into their slots in the chassis, you can then align your suspension units up with the holes. If I could just get it close, show you in a close up there, you can see the holes here. There's one there and there's one there, and you can see the pins sticking through. So don't glue the suspension arms until you've got those on, and then you can move it all around and get them all parallel and everything that way, and then set it down on your blocks like you saw me doing and get everything done. This part here, which is, where are we? You put it in way back here at the beginning. This part here, F74, this is going to form the back of the front cab unit, I think. Don't glue that in at this stage. Just have it in there flopping about, and then when you glue this part on here, well, you could actually do it at this point here. You've got this part here going on F60. When you glue that on, then that's actually going to determine where that goes. But basically, it needs to be vertical on that face there. So yeah, the instructions could have been a bit different. They could have put this on then. I've also gone on and put these rear parts on here same time as the diffs, and I've put this little front bash plate part here on, but I haven't glued on this part here because it's green. So there we go, that's the way I would go with the build. The other thing I've been busy looking at is these wheels and their tyres. Here we are, Mr. Prepared as normal. If you look at the tyres, they're flat-sided. They're very flat-sided, and they're sort of quite featureless. There's no lettering on them or anything, but they should be sort of more bulged than that. They should be sort of a rounder section rather than just this flat U section with flat sides. So I've actually made some resin wheels, and here they are. And what I've done, I've actually made them with the Model Collect tyres. So I've got a couple of them with bubbles in the back here, which I'm not going to worry about. But basically I've got resin wheels now, and then they'll just go on like so. Hang on. I've obviously picked a tight axle. But they'll go on like so. And then what we can do is just put those on. My advice would be, with this kit, would be to sand these down or open up the holes in the back, as I said before, and make them a bit of a looser fit, and then, you know, put them all on and then clamp them in behind a couple of blocks. But you can see that these wheels now, with those tyres, look a lot nicer. If I get a close up, they look a lot better with they've got some tyre lettering on them. In fact, if I just give one of these a quick ink wash, where's my ink wash? Here it is. You'll see the detail pop straight away. Let's just give these an ink wash. So you can see around there you've got there we go. You can see around there we've got the tyre lettering detail on there, and you've got all the hub detail in the centre. You've also got the ribs that go out on the tyres as well. So they're a lot nicer than these flat featureless tyres like this. And I've also made there's the centre ones as well. There's these two undriven wheels, and they've just got the flat centres in them. And they've also, again, I've made those with the Model Collect tyres, and I've done left and right so the tread goes the opposite ways, and I've removed the seam from the centre as well. So if anybody wants to buy some of those, just get in touch. I've also done the wheels for the Model Collect. Now the problem with the Model Collect kit is the good thing is the hubs. I don't know if people know this MAZ 543 chassis, they use two different types of hub, and basically what Model Collect done, they've used a different hub. If I get my ink wash in there again, this will also show up another feature I've added. There we go. And you can see on there, let's just get rid of some of that ink on that one. You can see on here they've got there's a different hub design. It's the I think this one is the later design, this one is the earlier. But also with the Model Collect kit, there is no rim on the wheels. So even if you use the Model Collect tyres and the Model Collect wheels, there's no actual rim on the tyre, so you end up having to try and paint nothing. So I've actually made the wheels up with a rim on them and then cast them that way. So and they won't fit this kit. They've got smaller holes in the back, and you won't be able to bore them out because I think you'll go through. So you could just in fact glue them straight on, but you'll have a slightly wider track, I think. But something worth looking at. So so that's what I've been busy doing with that. Right, moving forward, here we go. There's the chassis now all painted up. This is actually done with the Revell instructions, what they recommend, which is actually, I think it's called, yeah, tar black, number 06 tar black. So done that, thinned it with the Revell aqua colour thinners, and yeah, it's come out really nice. The Revell paints spray beautifully. I mean, if you can see that, to show you close up, you can see that the finish is just gorgeous on it. It's also quite tough. It's tougher than Tamiya paint, straight on plastic, and it's also it's a lovely sheen. Its downside is, you know, like with Tamiya paint, you could paint this and an hour later you could handle it. 10 minutes later you could handle it in some cases. This stuff takes, I mean, this was sprayed a good 12 hours ago and it's still, I wouldn't like to hold it firmly. You know, I wouldn't want to hold it. If it was a flat panel or something like a car body, there's no way I'd want to hold that at all, even if it was just a primer. So that's its downside. But as I say, I did a video a while back about different paints and primers, and I discovered this paint was extremely tough on the scratch test. As we know, like paints like Viejo just scratches off easily. So there we go. So that's the chassis done. That's all painted. I've done the cab parts, and you'll also see here I've got the Meng cab parts from this Meng kit that I also reviewed. See it there? It's the Russian 54 K6E command post. So yeah, I've got the cab parts there. Unfortunately, this kit, the Revell kit, has no interior detail at all. Like you can see here, this is the Meng cab. So we've got the roof and the sidewalls and the door openings there. This is the side of the Revell kit, and all we've got inside are these round supports. So like this is the interior floor of the main cab. That's the interior floor of the cab for the Meng kit. So you can see there's quite a difference there. So yeah, there's no detail whatsoever. Whereas inside the Meng, we've got, you know, a nice instrument panel. We've got our CO2 bottles there. We've got, you know, greeblies on the side, and that's just had a quick spray over with a green paint that I mixed myself. And this is the colour that I've seen every Maz 543 I've seen is painted this colour in the cab, and this is a paint I've made myself. You can see I've even called it Maz 543, and this is Tamiya paint, 4xX2, which is white, 1xX14, which is the like a middle blue, and 1xX28, which is, I'm just looking now, is a park green. So that's how I've made that. 4xX2 white, 1xX14 blue, 1xX28, and that gives you this interior colour, which I believe is also fairly accurate for some helicopters. The aircraft tend to have a more turquoisey colour. This is the, yeah, this is the colour. This is Akan paints, and you can see the colour there. I mean, it needs a good mix, but you can see there the colour is it's a lot bluer than the green found in these Maz cabs. So there we go. So that's all painted up and everything. So we'll let that go off now, and then I'm going to put some satin varnish on it to get the shine off. That's the problem, it's made with all gloss paint. So I'm going to put some satin varnish on, get the sheen off it. Right, going quite a bit off the camera, to be honest. Got a mass of parts here, and basically I just want to show you I've gone out of sequence again with the instructions, just to make life a little easier. Now with these, with all the Maz 543 vehicles, whether it be 35th scale, trumpeter, Meng, whoever, chassis generally always black, and then all of the bits and pieces that go on the chassis will be the main colour. So in this case, if it's just going to be Russian Army, it would be the green. If it's going to be a camouflage one, it would all be camouflaged, unless of course they've been painted afterwards, like maybe an Iranian one would have been painted afterwards, so there may be some overspray on the chassis, whatever. But in my experience, it's always had a black chassis and the rest of the parts are the same colour as the rest of the vehicle. Now what they'd have you do here is glue all these bits on. So like you've got this unit here, which has got some sort of radiator on the front of it, and then there's this box here, which is where's that? It's here somewhere. There it is. So you've got that box there which goes on the side of the chassis. That would also be green, and then you've got all these brackets that hold all these mudguards on. So what I've done, rather than do it this way round, what I've done is actually this main part here. This part here is actually joined across, so you can see it's joined there, and what I've done is cut them off, so I've got two separate parts. It makes it easier to work with. And then what I've done is glued on, where necessary, these supports, so that I can actually fit the whole thing up without having to. In fact, I don't think I've put those two in. There's me saying all this, I don't think I've put these in. So I'll do that before I actually do any painting. But then what you can do, you see, like with this one here, we've got them on, we can paint all this together and then put it on the chassis. So basically it still fits. I mean, you've got the black chassis here, and then you can just fit it in, and those are going to go into two holes in there. These sit on these two blocks there, sit in those holes, and you've got holes in there, and you can see it basically stays there on its own. So you can just paint it all, glue it on, job done. There's no masking or anything to do. So that's my suggestion for a change of sequence. You'll also notice, if you look here, I've jumped ahead and glued all these toolboxes onto the top of those wheel arches so that I can deal with the seams. Now there's where you glue these on, you've got a seam all the way along here to deal with, and down the back and the front. So I've dealt with those seams and scraped them and sanded them, missed the surface of them and stuff, and got them all lovely, because it's much easier to do holding your hand like this than as a complete assembly when all this is painted and everything. So that's what I've done there. Now we can see that I've put the cab parts together. I've masked the outside of the windows with Vallejo liquid mask, which is there, and I've just put some masking tape over the inside of them so that when I spray, any overspray doesn't get on the inside. There's no detail inside these whatsoever. There's nothing much to see, so I just went on and glued them on. You can see we've got there's the front part there, and that's basically going to stick onto there like so. So again, outsides are masked up with Vallejo, insides masked up with tape, ready for painting. That's the back of the actual launch tube. This is the front jack. This is the main hydraulic jack that lifts the front of the thing off its wheels. On the right hand side, you can't see it in this picture, but it's actually, there it is there. You can see it there, and it goes and lifts the front up. More bodywork here with the toolboxes or whatever, and then the brackets glued on there. They are very flimsy. I've put that cross member on there as well, as you can see. In fact, I have done them. You can see them there, the ones that I pointed out I hadn't done. So yeah, and then we've got the actual footrest there for the jacks. You get two different ones of each. These obviously have the detail on the outside, because when they're up, they're like this, and they're the bottoms are exposed, so there's a chance there to do some weathering and have some rust running down and stuff. A few bits and odds and ends here. I've painted up the fire extinguishers that go on the front, and it says they're red, so I'm going to do them red. Not sure they would have been red, but I've done them in a gloss red anyway, so they can be left there to dry. We've got the main ramp here, which has had Mr. Servicer put over its back end here where the gaps are, so we'll deal with that. Main tube is here, obviously, waiting for this joint to be sanded out. And yeah, we're pretty much there. The box is practically empty now, so we're getting to the point where we get rid of the box, and just really going to go on now and start getting things painted. So here we go. There's everything painted now in Russian green. I have used this one here. Where is it? It's this one here, which is Russian modern green from AK Real Colour. Not sure if it's exactly the right colour, but once it's weathered and washed and gloss coated and everything, it'll completely change anyway. So there we go. So there's all the little sub-assemblies now ready to be glued onto the chassis. Worth remembering with these, from every reference I've ever seen with these things, all of this was black, and then everything that bolted onto it was green. So that's the way I'm building this one now. Subsequently, you know, if Iraq or Iran or whatever bought these things, then not particularly this, but the Mars trucks, what they did then, I guess they took the wheels off and painted the whole thing. I don't know, but I know that when they were new from the factory, everyone I've ever seen in photographs, I've never seen one in the flesh, all the chassis work, all the axles, differentials, everything in there is black. Engines were basically silver, and then everything that bolted or fitted to it was green. So I've got to go around now, and I've got some areas under here that have been a bit, you know, the paint's a bit thin, so I'm going to go through those and just get some paint in there, because you can guarantee as soon as you know it's together you'll spot it. So I'll get all that sorted, and then I'll come back. Alright, as you can see, that's all glued together now. I've got the cab on front. I've put some Mr. Surfacer around this joint here. It's actually a very good fit, but I've just put it around there just so I can sand it and make sure it's square, rather than discover after I've painted it there's a gap there or something. So yeah, a little drop of Mr. Surfacer around there, and then I'll just get in there with a skinny stick and just gently just sand that away to give a nice square corner as it would have been in real life. And I can confirm that all of this, my change of building plan, all goes lovely, it all goes on absolutely fine. Just keep an eye down the length to make sure that it all stays sort of pretty much in line. You know, it wouldn't have been perfect, but it needs to be sort of fairly close. In fact, it's probably good to have a little bit of wavery on it to make it look a bit more Russian. These parts here, they go in absolutely beautiful. I don't know if it's because of the fit or it's because of the paint in there, but they basically clipped in and just stayed there on their own. So yeah, really pleased with that. I also added a little piece of white plastic card, you can see here, just to support this this bin on the side, because it basically just hangs there on two pins. But I have just noticed that we've actually got parts there which look like they should be supporting it as well. So yeah, maybe that's how it's supposed to be, with those arms there supporting it. So perhaps ignore what I've done there and just do it as they intended. So I'm just going to break that away, pull that away, there we go, and then that will go up then and fit into those. Yeah, that fits into those brackets lovely then. So that's the way that's supposed to go. But having said that, with it up too high, so I'll just put some glue in there. You want to make sure everything stays sort of horizontal and not have anything, you know, angled up, as it were. And I'm using the quick setting there because it's quite aggressive and it will eat through the paint. No problem at all. So yeah, it all goes together quite nicely, and as you can see, with a bit of care, a bit of Mr. Surfacer, a bit of filling around these parts here, and a bit of careful sanding, you could end up with you know, quite a nice looking model. And then once it's had a gloss coat and a wash, all this detail here is really going to pop out. So that's the main chassis part taken care of. I've also done some work on this tube, as you know, glued them together, and then bit of Mr. Surfacer on the joint, bit of careful sanding, gone over some primer, and then careful sanding again, and we've got a pretty much seam free joint now. I don't know what's going on here, I can't remember. That isn't where the seam is. I can't remember what's going on there, but I seem to have some sort of damage of some sort. I'll have to have a look back and see. Maybe I'll have to put some Mr. Surfacer in there and repair that, because I don't want that, because that is directly on the top. It sort of sits in like that there. You can see that this area here is the most obvious. I think it would have been better if they'd have put the joints down the sides so that they wouldn't be so obvious, but it is what it is. So I need to get this this tube put together. As you can see, what we've got is we've basically got the actual tube itself, and then we've got these parts here going on. Then we've got to assemble this ring at the back, which I've already done. So that's that done, and that joint's taken care of. And then that is basically going to glue onto, there's another ring which is in the box here. So that part there is going to go on the back, and then that's going to glue onto that. And then we've got the actual nose part there, which goes on, and we've got a box going on the side, I believe, which I can't see at the moment. So yeah, I'll get on and get that glued together, and then I'll come back. Right, so here we are again, pushed on quite a bit. The whole point of this video is not to show you sort of how to build this. It's kind of just watching me build it, really. So these are my resin wheels I made. Why have I made resin wheels? Two reasons. One is there's no tyre lettering on the actual. This is the Zvezda Revell wheel, and this is my aftermarket wheel here. You can see that my resin wheel that I've made, they're actually not very good. I should have paid more attention to the tread. Some of them, you can see here, where we go, I've pretty much lost the tread. So really what I should do is remake them, but you know, I probably can't be bothered, to be honest. But the reason I made them is these are actually molds. I've used the Meng, not the Meng, what am I talking about, the Meng. I've used the Model Collect tyres on the Revell wheels. Now the difference is, if you look at the, have I got some Model Collect here? Yes. If you look here, these are the Model Collect wheels. They're the earlier type hub design. You can see there's a difference in the hub design there. Okay, so this is the early type for the Maz, and these are the later type, which are fitted to the Topol. So the Revell / Zvezda wheels are different than the Model Collect. But also the problem with the Model Collect wheels is they have no rim. So I've actually added a rim and then made the wheels and tyres as resin for the Model Collect. And I've also made the Revell / Zvezda wheels with the Model Collect tyres on them because A, there's no tyre lettering. There's actually three reasons. B, these tyres are, I think they're much too slab-sided. If you look at the difference in the side walls, you can see that the side walls on the Model Collect wheels are a lot more accurate. They're sort of a lot more bulged, and these are just flat. And also, when you actually scale it up, these are too tall. So not only do they look too tall because they're flat-sided, they actually are too tall. And yeah, so I don't like those at all. I'd much prefer the Model Collect. They look a lot better, a bit fatter as well, give it that more of a custom look with wide wheels. So yeah, I've made those. If you want a set of those, like I say, they're not very good. They've got bubbles in them. And I've made the special wheels as well with the flat centers. If you want a set, drop me an email. I won't charge the world for them because, as I say, the tread could be better. You can see here, you know, I mean, if you want to spend the time with a saw, you could accentuate the tread and make it look better, but I really can't be bothered. These wheels have had a wash, and I've basically given them a quick ink wash just to highlight some of the detail, and they've been painted again with the Russian green colour. And I've made them left and right, so this is a left wheel, and they should just basically press on like so. Yeah, on some of them I'm going to need to sand the spindles. I don't want them to fit too tightly because they'll end up snapping them off. You can see that they will go on. Is that the way around? Yes. They go on there, so you get the idea. And that's the wrong way. That's the right way. Yeah, it's a little tight on that one, so I'm going to get a sanding stick and just remove some of the material from here in an effort to make it a little less tight. There we go. So we can see now that they will all go on. So I'll go on and get the rest of these wheels on, then I'll come back. And there we go, there's all the wheels placed on. I can take them all off again, and you can see some of them are much looser fit than others. So there we are, and that's how it all looks with those. And I think we can all agree they look a lot better than the Revell ones. So yeah, I'm certainly a lot happy with them anyway. So there we go. So as we can see now, this is all painted, and I've gone around and touched up all the black and everything. I fitted the main front lift and the walkway there over the engine. That's the engine cover. I've got to go around and do the lights and everything now, and then we're going to give it all a gloss coat. In fact, I'll probably do the lights last after it's had a matte coat and everything. This leg here, I've lost a piece. There should be a leg that supports this, which I've lost. So I don't know quite where that's gone, but I did have it, and now I don't. So there we go. I've got to add this rear main member here, which will pop in like so over the chassis, and then that will go down in there. And then we've got the main actual launch tube there, and you can see the seam was here. That's all sanded out and gone, so that will just basically sit on top of there like so. And it looks like that gets in the way of that, which is a bit annoying. We shall see what happens when it all goes together, but there we are. You can see that it all just sits together like so. So that's how it's gonna look with it all done. So you see it's quite a beast. You know, in 72nd scale, it's, what is it? It's over, it's about 310mm long, so it's quite a big old beast. That's like the size of a Su-27 or a Su-24. So yeah, quite pleased with it. Let's get some more painting done. All gloss coated now. Rear bulkhead part is fitted on. I've gone around and put the decals on the front, added the fire extinguishers on there, as you can see. We've got the decals on the sides here. I've just gone over them with some Tamiya thinners just to sort of make them bed down. They're looking quite good. I would have painted them, but getting the red to cover the green would have been more difficult, and I couldn't be bothered to go with white first and everything. The decals are there, I'll just put them on, and they're obviously some sort of warning to warn people that they're there. I don't know why they don't have them on the back, but they do on the front, so on the sides. So so there we go. So that's all gloss coated. The actual rocket launch tube itself is all gloss coated now. We can see where that seam was, so it's, you know, proves it's worth taking your time and getting it right. So that's just going to basically sit on there. It has a couple of locating pins, and it'll just sit on there like that, and you can see now we've got the whole model kind of done. And bearing in mind this is 72nd scale, as I say, it's huge. And just to prove that this is, if you've already seen it, this is the C141 build. I've just gloss coated the bottom of that. So yeah, while the future was out, I thought I may as well get both of these done together. So for those of you that say I never finish anything, here we go. So right, I'm going to get on now and put a wash on this. I think I'll put an ink wash on it, but I'm going to let it dry for a good, I don't know, 12 hours first, just in case if there's any areas where the future, or clear should I say, is sort of pooled or a bit thicker. Then basically I want to make sure that you know, it's all dried out. So we'll leave that now for a few hours. I'll get this I'll get a top coat on this one, on the upper surfaces, and then we can leave that for a good 12 hours as well and go from there. So there we are. Okay, so there we go, we're all dry now. It's about 24 hours later, decals are on, gloss coat is on, all dry and everything. So now what I want to do is stop this, because if you look at it like this, it is just a green blob. So I want to try and break it up a bit and try and give it a bit of depth, a bit of artistic license, if you like, before we start any detail painting. So this is the colour that it's been painted in, this Russian modern green from AK Real Colours. So what I've done, I've chosen a green which is darker and a green which is lighter. So now my objective is to actually do some shading to kind of make it pop a bit. Now what I'll do is I'll concentrate around any areas like raised areas or pipework or whatever around these doors and everything with the darker green, and then in the middle of here I will add a lighter green like this. This is actually US Interior Yellow Green, and this one is XF58 Olive Green. So I'm going to use this heavily thin, so I'm not going to be using that one. So what I'll do the darker one first, So what I'll do, I'll use the AK high compatibility thinners, and I will put a fairly large drop in the airbrush, like so. Okay, now put the top back on that. I'll get the XF58, get the model out of the way, and I'm literally just going to put a drop of the paint into there. Put 2 drops. So basically this is just going to be almost, you know, another drop, dirty thinners. It's hardly any colour to it whatsoever. And I'll put the cap back on. As you can see, when I spray this, it's extremely thin. There's nothing to it. So the idea of the object now is to go around all these joints here and just blow this in. Now remember, the actual gloss coat has made the green darker, so this effect won't really pop out until you put your matte coat on. So you could in fact do this before you do any gloss coating, which would make more sense. But to be honest, I didn't think I was going to be doing this because I thought it would look okay, but to me it just looks like a green blob. All I'm doing is going around any edges or anything, and it's not, you know, it's nothing too much. It's just, you'll see it at the end once the flat coat goes on. You'll see the difference it would have made. There the edge of there. As I say, it's thin so heavily you'll probably never hardly see it, but it's just going to add a certain amount of effect. Just get some shadowing in here. Okay, so that's that. I'll do that in the front, have I? So I'll just go around the edges here. Okay, now that should do us. And then on the actual launch tube itself, I'm just going to go around these raised areas. And under here. And then once it's had a wash, all this will add to the effect. Not quite sure yet what to do with the back end. I need to look at some more reference shots. It's hard to find a shot of what the back end actually looks like. Okay, so we can see there, I don't know if you can pick that out in the camera, it's very, very subtle, very, very slight amount of darkness going on there. So, and that is literally it. That's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to go around the edge of that. Okay, that is that. So now I'm going to pour that back in the pot because it's basically that colour thinned with the high compatibility thinners. So now what I'm going to do, give that a good shake. So now I'm not even going to bother, just blow the airbrush out, don't need to clean it out. Get some more of the thinners. And then I'm going to use this colour here, this US interior yellow green. I'm not actually that keen on it. It's too yellow. In my opinion, it's too yellow to depict interior green, and it's too green to depict zinc chromate. So I'm not going to worry about putting anything back in there and contaminating it, because I probably never use it. I don't like the colour. But that's just my opinion. What do I know? So I'll put the top back on there. So I'm just going to check my flow. Okay, so this is extremely thin. As you can see, it's 90%, even 95% thinners. And what I'm going to do now is come in and just gently fog in lightly in between those areas I've already done. It doesn't need to be perfect, you just want to get a fogging effect. And this isn't trying to change the colour of anything, it's just trying to add some effect to the model. Okay, and then I do the same. Along there, and then on the top of these tubes. And this will just basically be where the sun has bleached the paint. I know as time has gone on, the Russian paints and everything have probably got better, but it still doesn't change the fact that the Russians, like the Navy, will spend hours and hours cleaning aircraft and touching them up where paint is worn out, but the Russians don't tend to do that, which for the modeler makes Russian articles very interesting subjects, because you can go to town with your weathering. I'll blow a little bit more on there. Where's the top? That's the top there. So the top, there we go. Now when, I don't know if you can see that, but when the clear coat goes on, when the matte coat goes on, it'll stick out like a sore thumb. So I'm going to do the same on here now. Just go in between . Okay, and as I say, it's hardly an effect at all. It's just very, very subtle. I'm just going to go over these upper areas again, because they would have been the most affected. People walking on them, sunlight, rain. There we go. Just a quick highlight on the back, quick highlight on here. And then what I'm going to try is just generally, there we go. So that, when it's got the flat coat, as I say, that will kind of really come out, and then the washes and everything will add to it. Right, so what I've got now is Tamiya XF86 pre-thinned. It's about 60% thinners with the AK high compatibility thinners. So this is, although it's actually a matte, it's more of a kind of satin. This flat varnish isn't very flat at all. You can add the Tamiya flatting agent, but I prefer to use other flats. So I'm just going to now paint this. Like I say, just give it a light coat, nothing too heavy. And it's just really something to prepare it for our washes and oils and whatever we decide to add. I'm not trying to put it on perfect either. It's not a model car, it's a Russian military vehicle, so there we go. You can see that's given it a kind of satin effect, and now you can see, I hope you can see that the effect I've done with the paint is showing through a lot more. I don't know if you can see that now, but you can see the darker areas and the lighter areas, but it just kind of gives it that bit of depth, a bit of post shading is what it's called. So I'm just going to go over this now quite heavily. Just seal those decals in. And this is getting a bit smelly. I think I'm going to finish this off in the that's all gone off now, and I've started doing a bit of a wash. I've also done some work on these pads, because obviously they would have been scratched up and a bit rusty and stuff if they'd been used a few times. So I painted those with a metallic iron, then I polished it back. I've put some sort of oxide and reds and that over the top of it, and then I've sealed it. So you can see that on there we've got this kind of rusty look to start with, and then we can sort of add some pigments and stuff. So what I'll talk about now is washes. Now what I've got here is an old AK enamel wash, which is just a black wash, some cotton buds, and these are actually Tesco's cotton buds, and they're garbage. So if you live in the UK and you've got a Tesco's near you, don't bother. They just absolutely fall to bits. They're awful. So yeah, this is what they end up looking like after you've used them a little bit. So I've just been out again and got some Johnsons, and I've left them downstairs. But anyway, so what I'm going to do now, I put the wash on. I'll show you what I do. I'll just put some wash on here. Okay, so just go around, and what I'm doing is just following in the panel lines around these doors and stuff, and in the handle areas, and anywhere I want to create a shadow. And then I can just leave that to dry for a few minutes. So in the meantime, what I'll do is I'll go on and do some bits on this launch tube. So I'm going to go around here, anywhere where there's any detail. I'm going to go around, and all this is doing is giving you a bit of depth. It's just adding some shadowing, and it's just basically giving it depth and making it kind of look 3D. And it will also make these details, like these rivets on here, they'll pop out around the edges of that flange there, that will pop out. So it doesn't really matter how much you put on. You can put too much, you could thin it down some more and make it wash round. The other thing you can do is put some oil. I'll show you here. If you put some thinners on here first, then when you put the wash on, the wash will follow with the thinners, so that will give you another effect there. So again, I'll show you. I'll put some thinners on here. You can see the capillary action pulls the thinners along, and then when I come along with the wash, I just dab the wash on. It tends to go with the thinners, okay? Whereas if you don't put the thinners on, you have to kind of brush it out. Okay, now I'm using odourless thinners. Be careful what thinners you use. Ordinary, certainly never use turpentine, it will attack the plastic. And I'll show you again here. If I put some thinners around there, then I put some wash on, you can see that it will go with the thinners. And the other thing I can do, I can come along with some thinners and go over where I've put it on previously, and I can sort of fade it out, thin it out, spread it around a bit, use it a bit more sparingly. So I can go around here, look, get this here, and and then brush that into there. You know, there is no actual set hard technique. There are many different ways of doing this, and you also need to be aware there are many people on the market these days that will tell you you need a different colour wash for this colour background and this colour background, and you know, there's even different colour washes for different types of genre. You know, you've got a black wash for ships, and then you've got a black wash for model cars, say. It's just crazy. You know, a black wash is a black wash. It doesn't matter what it's for. Okay, so you can see there, and that's the general idea. You get the general idea of what I'm trying to achieve, and it's just basically picking up the detail. It's not a actual weathering effect, it's just literally picking up the detail. So here I've got a dry cotton bud. Now I can come along, and I'm going to go downwards so that it shows streakiness, and I can just pull this down. You can see how this cotton bud is literally falling apart. Then I can go across and then come down again, and you can see that we can drag that out. When we get into areas like this that are dry, if we think, you know, like on this cab here, if I want to take that out a bit, what I can do is come along with a stiff brush, put it in the odorless thinners, dab it onto a towel. You don't want it soaking wet, and then I can just run this down here, and it will remove the wash from where I don't want it. Okay, so if I think it's a bit heavy around those rivets, just brush it out. Okay, and what it'll do, it'll thin what's there, and what's there will then put it around all the features, but you'll basically end up with something like that. Okay, so it basically thins it. It obviously looks worse because it's wet, so it's darker, but believe me, when we come back to it in a minute, you look at it dry, you'll see that it's nothing like as bad as it was, or heavy as it was, should I say. And then like that area there is a bit heavy, I can get in there, and then if I want to, I can go over the whole thing and then come in with a clean cotton bud and dry it off, and then get my downward streaks in there again, just like that. Okay, same here, I can take it off, and if you take too much off, you know, just go back again. If you look at it tomorrow and you think it still looks a bit too heavy, wet it with enamel with odorless thinners, and it will come down again. Just like so. So you can see it's not actually, there's no art form or anything, it's just basically sticking at it. So, you know, that area there I think looks a little bit too dark, so I can just wet that. Just like that. Okay, so there's a million different ways to do this. I'm sure people want to tell me I'm doing something wrong. Well, I'm not, because I'm doing what I want to do, and it's my model, and I'm getting the result I want, so it can't be wrong, can it? And I'm also just going to get some wash on the brush and get down in behind there. Okay, so there we go. And like on this fuel tank, if I want to thin the wash out a bit, I can, and then if you just dab it with a cotton bud, again, remove some wash from there, clean the brush off, remove some from here, Alright, and then when we come to areas like this, now if I want to leave the wash dark in that area there where those bolts are, what I can do is come along with my enamel thinners, or sorry, my odourless thinners, I keep saying enamel thinners, and I can just brush and blend into that corner, like so. I'm not flooding it, I'm just moving the wash around, and it'll end up with like a blotchy appearance, almost like it's kind of oil stained. And I could just leave it in that area, and the same here. Clean the brush off in the odourless thinners, dab it, what you could do is just push the wash around to where you want it. So I want it to stay on those rivet heads, bolt heads, whatever they are. Okay, so hopefully you can see there what I'm doing. As I said, I'll be getting a new camera very soon, and I will have a camera that will attach to a monitor, and I'll have a monitor here so that I can see what you're seeing, so it should improve the channel tenfold. And my kind subscribers who have given me money on Patreon have put towards the camera. We're nearly there now. I've stopped using Patreon as a matter of interest. I'm disgusted with their charges. So I can't see the point in you guys, you know, one of you guys gives me £10, thank you very much, I see £8 of it. It's just ridiculous. So I've started using PayPal now, which some of you have kindly donated money on, again, which goes into the account for the camera. It's nice to know that some of you want to give something back, because I do put a lot of hours into this, a hell of a lot of hours. And there we go. As you can see, I'm just moving the wash around, and if I want to remove it completely, I can just go around with a cotton bud, remove it from the upper areas and leave it only in the lower areas, like so. Yep, just like that. There you go. Okay, and then what I can do now is come in with some odourless thinners, brush it all around there, let it sit in there, and then I could come in with a drop of wash and paint that in there. Let's get some more on that brush. Put some more in there as well, I think. And as I say, the beauty of this is you can always come back. You can always revisit it. You know, even the next day, you could come back and manipulate this, move it around, work it. And when you see me do the C141, I will probably use this kind of effect to get the, I'll show you now what I'm going to do. You can use this kind of effect to get the walked on look on the walkways, on the wings and stuff. So just put some wash around there. Again, go along here, keeping the wash in the corner, and then pushing it into that corner. Okay, so it's that simple. It's nothing difficult. If you're a bit scared of it, you know, do it on an old model first, or go and find something that you can do. Go and spray a broom handle or something. You know, put some rough marks or something into a broom handle and go in there. Oops. Okay, so there you go. Now you can see basically how I do that, and again using the thinners, just brush it along there, and that will make that wash stay in that corner, and then you can blend it out. And if you want to, come on the cotton bud, just kind of dry it out, blotch it out, whatever, and it gives you that kind of, instead of just having the wash in the corner, it kind of blends it out a bit. Okay, and the same on here. Just going to go around here, like so. Now this is that way up, so I'm going to put some streaks in it. Right, so now we're going to move forward into the weathering stage, and I want to get the wheels on. Now basically these wheels, you can see they've had a bit of pigment, and I've put some MIG pigments on them, a few different dirt colours, and then just rubbed it in, so it gives the tyres a kind of a dirty look. Now the look I'm after with this, I don't want it plastered in mud. I want it to look like it's been hosed off, ready for transportation. Reason being is, as you know, I've got my cargo aircraft and everything. If you go back a few videos ago, about 20-30 videos ago I should think, you'll know I was at a show in Bristol, and a guy had a large display of Russian aircraft, which really inspired me to get some Russian aircraft built. And what really inspired me was the fact that he had some vehicles there, and they kind of gave the whole thing some scale, rather than just having a line of aircraft sat there on a, you know, a red or a silver, you know, sheet. They were all on like a sort of diorama base, and they all had cars and trucks and stuff with them, and it really did make everything sort of stand out, and it gave everything scale. And you could see, I mean, you had a Tu-95 there, there was an AN-22, I think, I can't remember now, and there was a BE-12, and it gave them a real impression of size, because, you know, these trucks in themselves are massive. You know, and if you look at the engine here for the AN-12, the AN-12, this is the a resin copy of the engine casing. I mean, look at the size of that. You can see this is the cab. So you know, a man sits in there, and that's how big that engine cavity is. So it sort of, you know, you see these model aircraft and you think, wow, they're big, but this really does give you the, you know, the wow factor. So really impressive stuff. And I want this to look like it's just been hosed down, ready for transportation. They wouldn't have, obviously, being Russian, they wouldn't have got it spotlessly clean, but they probably would have pressure washed it off. So basically you wouldn't have build up of mud and stuff and caked on dirt everywhere, but you would have residual dirt, and that's the effect I'm looking for. And you can see here, this is what I've done under these arches and stuff, is I've given it just like a dirty look, and I've done this with pigments, and also on these pads here we've got some pigments on there to represent dirt and rust and stuff. So, and you can see the same on this side here. So the way I've done this, what I do, these are Pro Modeler, but today they're called Flory, and they are weathering pigments. I've got 4 here. I've got sand, rust, mud brown and green earth. Now if you compare those to what you generally get, here's a MIG one, so you can see the difference in the volume. You know, it's quite, this is 20 milliliters, I don't know what sort of size this is. It's probably, I mean, it's a 70mm diameter. That's a good sort of 100mm in there, I would imagine. You know, it's a lot. It's a good 5 times what you're getting in there, but I find it's not quite so fine. The MIG pigments are extremely fine. This is the gunmetal one, which is fantastic for doing like on idler wheels. If they're like German without the tyres on, just dab your finger in, rub it round the wheel, job done. You've got a shiny surface there, and then you can polish it with a cotton swab if you want to. But these are the ones I'm using underneath. Now, if you remember, I use these a lot on the Mark IV tank because basically they're a lot cheaper in comparison, and they're a lot heavier. These are so fine. If I give you an example, if you haven't used these before, I mean, here's a set of sand and earth. You can see they're not cheap, and these are probably a good 10 years old. So if we compare, if I take this one here, if we compare, you can see that this pigment is a lot. I've got some here. If I put some on there, you can see that when you actually break it down, it's a lot finer, in my opinion. And also, I've got a feeling since this Phil has reformulated his washes, his pigments. These are Pro Modeler. They're now called Flory models. But basically, they're a lot more expensive, they're a lot finer. What they are good for, I find they're better than the Flory ones for areas like if you just want to go dry. So if I want to go in here and go dry and just brush this on, like so. Looks like the postman might be on his way. Hear the dog barking. Okay, and then I can remove the pigments now. I can brush most of it off, but leave, you can see it leaves a trace behind, and this is an effect that would be very, very hard push to get with paint. Okay, so you can see that now. If I take this Flory one here, if I take this one here, which is a more of a concretey sort of colour, you can see if I brush it on, it's a lot heavier. And we can get that kind of dusty, dusty sort of, which it would have had behind it because it's going along in the dirt. You can see we've got that dusty look, but if I keep brushing it, it just basically all comes off. So I kind of prefer the MIG, but the Flory stuff is so much cheaper and you get so much more of it. Another beauty of the Flory stuff, I think, if you look back at some of Phil's videos, he did like a diorama with some Airfix buildings, and you mix PVA with it and turn it into a claggy muck and all sorts of stuff. So so there we go. So what I'm going to do here, I'll get those out of the way, and I'm going to bring this over, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up all these different colours. You can see I've got these 3 different colours here, and I'm just going to basically put them in to this area, and then go along with a different one here, go with the darker brown. You can see I'm not being careful at all, just banging it in. And you also need to think about, you know, where the dirt would be. You know, the wheels are going to kick up some dirt into these wheel arches and stuff, and they're also going to deposit it all around the suspension components here and everything. But you mightn't necessarily get it all splashed up the sides, particularly, as I say, when you bear in mind this, I want this to have the appearance that it's been hosed down. It's kind of, you know, it's been bought. I'm thinking about, even if you know these were made into the, was it Star 1 or Star Turn, into those rocket launchers, I'm actually considering using the decals that come with this kit for the rocket launching version, the yellow and green one, I can't remember what it's called now, and using that and making like a draped tarpaulin to put over the side to say that, you know, to show that it's been bought up by them and it's being transported to them for its modifications. So there we go, you can see that's really easy. Just get it in all these wheel arches and everything. And if you've got a gloss finish, this won't stick to it at all, but if you've got a matte finish, it will. You can see there, you get this dusty look that you're after. Okay, so you could leave it like that. The trouble is, every time you pick it up and put it down, you can see you shake it and it comes off. And what you want to do is sort of stick it into place. Now I'm going to use this stuff, which is MIG Pigment Fixer, which I believe is just enamel thinners, to be honest. And I'm not going to use that brush, I'm going to use this brush. This is quite a stiff nylon bristled brush, and it comes to a point. And the reason for this is you can pick quite a lot up and then just dab it into areas, and what it will do, it will capillary along, okay, and it will sit with the pigments and it will bond them into place. And it also gives it a kind of washed out look, which is the look I'm after. Alright, I'm just going to put some more dirt on here. And then literally come along with this one and just dab it on. And there we go. Once that's dry, we will get the, what I'm going to do is put it on back just to fix this in. And once that's dry, it will give us the appearance that it's been kind of hosed down, if you like. There we go. And then I can just brush off any excess that's got up on the sides, because I'm not interested in doing that area yet. So now once that's dry, we can go on and put the wheels on. Right, we're getting close now. I fitted all the wheels, got them all pretty much in line. My advice to anyone building this, or if I build another one, what I would do is, once you've got, before we put the wheels on, sand all the ends of the axles to the same length, and at least then you'll guarantee. I've got the wheels nice and square, but they tend to be a little bit sort of in and out-ish. So, and you can see I've gone over on a piece of wet and dry paper and just done this, and that just basically puts a flat spot on here. Because I've used my resin wheels, you can see the white spots coming through. If you actually use the rubber tires with the kit, obviously you won't get the white spots, but I'll go around and touch those in after if I need to. So we've basically done the underneath, where we've got all the mud and everything underneath, and if you remember, we were going to leave that and let it dry. Now if you get in there and you decide that sort of like in here it's a bit heavy, you just want to thin it out, all you do is take a brush. This is slightly dampened, with, you can see how damp it is, it's just literally damp, and you can just brush over that area and thin it out, just like so. And I mean, if you want to completely remove it, go in with a wetter brush and you can completely remove it. So there we go. So any areas where you think it's a bit heavy, just go in there with literally a damp brush, and that's that. Okay, now I need to go do under here yet, but there we are. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is start to look at some sort of making it look a bit old and used. So it would have had some rust on it, which would have streaked down. It would have some dirt, which would streak down. So I've got here, I've got rain marks, which basically give you like the rain mark staining, rust streaks, which are obvious, and streaking grime. Now for these, I'm going to use a thin brush to apply them, and I'm just looking for something now that I can rest it on. I'll use this one here. Okay, in fact it will sit like that. That's pretty cool. So I don't need to put anything under there at all. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start off with the rust, and I'll show you that basically how this works. You've probably seen this a million times before. You don't need to buy these products. You can just use oil paint, enamel paint. So I'm just going to get some on the brush, and I'm just going to basically touch it on in a couple of places where I think we might see some rust coming down, like so. Okay, now it doesn't matter how much or how little you put on. Well, it does matter how little, obviously, but you really want to be, you know, you don't need to worry too much about accuracy at this point, because what we're going to do afterwards is drag it down. There would have been some big chips on there, I think, and then we'll get some chips on here, get one there, and then around these handles on the bottoms of these grills. Okay, on here, got nothing on here, so I'll get some on these hinges, like so. So there we go. Okay, and as you can see, I can put it on as heavy or as lightly as I like. Alright, so that's how that's done. Don't be too fussed about doing rust streaks. I think on a normal Maz, these are fiberglass, so they wouldn't have rusted, obviously. But I'm not sure about this one. Maybe it was steel. If somebody tells me in the comments, then I'll go around it afterwards and do something. So there we go, we got those brown spots on there. So I'll just do the same on the other side, and then I'll leave it to dry for about 10 minutes and I'll come back. Right, so that's had about 5 minutes now, literally, to dry. So what I'm doing is I'm dampening my brush in some odourless thinners, and then what I'm going to do is just literally brush down on these areas where I've put the rust. And you can see that basically, and I've also got the this is the rain marks, the lighter colours you can see. So we can just brush down and just gently, they call this stumping at MIG and AK, and just basically dragging down to replicate what looks like, you know, a rusty chip or something, and the water is just dragged down. Now the rain marks are basically just enhancing streaks, really, so you can sort of leave them like that so you've got a line, or you can take it out some more and just blend it. And what it gives you is a kind of streaky sort of worn look to it, if you see what I mean. When I get to the end, you'll see exactly what I mean. This area on the top, I am just going to stump it. I'm not going to drag it. I'm just going to, like that, to give it a sort of walked on, worn, you know, dirt has settled on there. And then on the edges, just pull it down, like so. A little bit more thinners on the brush. When this dries, you'll see exactly what I mean. It kind of gives you a streaked, dirty finish. Now if you wanted it to be really rusty, then what you do is leave it to dry longer, and then you would slowly pull that lump of paint down to give you a kind of streaky, a proper rust streak, you know, like here where you can see you can see there it's actually like a line coming down. I can do the same here, just pull it down and it becomes like a proper rust streak rather than just being, you know, discoloration running vertically down the sides. Where you've got any build up, especially of the rain marks, you don't want that. Just remove it. So here we can see, again, I'm just going to get some more thinners on the brush. So I'm just going to blot the top. And then once again I'm going to drag this down. Like so. And when that's dry, you'll see the effect a lot better than you can at the moment. And on this cab, again, we've got the rain marks. Just going to pull them down. And you can see they're practically disappearing, but once they dry, they will be a lot more prominent, believe me. There we go. And we can see there that we've got a streaky, dirty, kind of worn out look. Now, paint chipping is not my best subject, especially in this scale. I'm not even going to attempt it, but there you can see we've got this kind of worn, streaky, dirty, unloved kind of look to it now. Okay, so I'll just go around and do the rest. I'll do the inside here quickly so you can see. And again, if you get to the bottom and you don't like it, just wipe it off and it will disappear. Now I need to get plenty of thinners in here because I want to blend out this mud and rust and just make that tread plate look generally grimy. There we go. Okay, and then once again on this front cab, just do the streaking. Like so. And I've got some rust up there on that frame. And there we go. And the other side should be pretty much dry now. Anyway, you can see it now. See the effect I've got. If I want to take something away, just brush it. And there we are. That is how to make your Russian green look a bit more interesting. Everyone talks about Russian green is just one colour and it's a bit bland. That's how to do it. What we can do is let that dry, and then we can go over with some of the streaking grime, which is just basically a dirty, grimy colour. And that'll also give us a nice dirty effect to it all. You can also brush up, that's what I forgot to say. There you go, you can make it look like there's just dirt on the edges and stuff. I hope you got from this video that, you know, basically all in all, this is a £14 model. It's given me hours and hours and hours of, it's not been fun all the way, but it's given me hours and hours of entertainment. And as it shows, I mean, the £14 and the model in a few hours building is sort of fades into nothingness when you look at the actual amount of time you spend painting, weathering. And as you can see at the moment, I'm concentrating on the truck. Now the launch tube will be done separately and then glued on. Okay, so I'll get a carry on with this and I'll come back when I'm done. And here we are about an hour later, and I've done the launch tube and everything in exactly the same way, with the rain marks and the streaking grime and some rust and stuff, you know. So if you look around the front here, we've got you can see where the water's been running down over the front, but it's left the dirt behind underneath that shroud. So yeah, we'll let that dry. Give that a couple of hours to dry, see what it looks like, maybe take some more off. And that's the beauty of these stuff, you know, you come in with a brush with some thinners on, just rub it around and you can change the whole look of it. If you've got any puddling or anything anywhere, or blotches you want to get rid of, that is the beauty of this stuff. You can just keep working at it for I think just a couple of days really. It's almost like working with oils. So I'll let that settle down, see what it looks like, and then once that's all dry and everything, I'll give it about 24 hours. We'll give it a flat coat and then we can remove the masking, and other than fitting the mirrors, we are done. And there we go, guys, here she is, all done. As you can see, we've got the dust and the dirt built up around here. Earlier on I called this a jack. It's not, it's actually the aiming system. This actually goes on the ground and does precise movements of the chassis to give the actual correct aim on the missile. So yeah, quite amazing. As you can see, the rust effects on those pads is maybe a little overdone, but you know, I like it. And as I say, I've tried to depict this as a vehicle that's been used, it's had a bit of a life, and it's been high pressure washed and hosed down, and it's going to be on an airfield awaiting transportation. Yeah, so that's the kind of thing I'm going for. So you can see we've got the sort of washed out paint. You can see that it's got a matte varnish on it. I've used a an Alclad product, which is this one here. I'll show you that one. That's Alclad 2 Clear Coat Flat. It is harmful, it is smelly, but it's pretty good, it's pretty tough. I do like a lot of the flat coats out there these days, but they tend to be not very hard wearing. And I don't know, some of them aren't very flat. I didn't want an absolutely dead flat finish on this, and you see we've got a slight sheen. If I'd have used the this one, this AK Ultra Matte Varnish, that is flatter than a flat thing on a flat day in a flat. It's really, really flat. I didn't want that. I wanted a dull sort of finish to it. One downside, I don't know if you can see here, if you look at the windows, they're a mess. Okay, I used this product here to mask the windows, and once again this manufacturer has let me down. I am absolutely fed up, sick and tired of Vallejo products. If you remember, I had their primer and it just peels, it's rubbish. I had some of their metallic paints, their metal paints, didn't dry. This stuff, it says on here, apply it, do not leave for a long time, do not leave applied for a long time. What would you say is a long time? In the world of modelling, when you're masking something up, like if it's an aircraft or this military vehicle, and you're going to be painting it, varnishing it, weathering it, you know, and you've got to leave 24 hours in between. This has actually been on there for 11 days. So I wouldn't consider 11 days to be a long time. And as you can see, trying to get it off, yeah, it's actually, I don't know if it's eaten into the plastic or if it's actually dried onto the plastic. I've tried everything. I've tried leveling thinners, I've tried alcohol, I've tried water, I've tried putting more of this over the top and then letting it dry and peeling it off. I've tried using the Mr. Hobby Masking Neo, that one, put that over the top, let it dry, try peeling it off, see if it will pull it off. Nothing will touch it. So thank you, Vallejo. After all this work and making the wheels and all the weathers and the washes and all this, it's been, you know, with breaks in between to let things dry. I've been on this probably 2 weeks, and really, thank you very much. You've ruined my model, thanks. So I'll tell you what, in the bin, absolute crap. So I should be using the Mr. Hobby from now on, rather than that rubbish. So yeah, we've got this primer here as well, this grey primer, which is Vallejo, polyurethane primer, absolute crap. So I don't know why I keep it, to be honest. But anyway, there we go. So yeah, if you've got this kit, don't use the Vallejo masking fluid on the windows, use the Mr. Hobby. I've had that Mr. Hobby on models for 2 or 3 weeks and it's been absolutely fine. As I say, I put this on here October the 19th and today is October the 30th. So yeah, great. Thanks for that. So there we are. It's all done. I found a few pictures of the tail end and basically it looks pretty much the same as the rest. Most of the images of this that are out there are sort of parade vehicles, so we can see that on the back end, you know, it's fairly clean. We've got a bit of dust on there, we've got the lights done and the side markers and stuff, and then on the front we've got the indicators and the side lights and that, so they're all done. Just a shame about those windows. I mean, you can see there, they look awful. So yeah, great, thanks for that. So there we go. If anybody knows how to get dried on Vallejo off, please let me know. I'd be interested to know. But other than that, I'm really, really happy with the way it's come out. I think my resin wheels have made a hell of a difference to the kit tyres. I think they look a lot better, but then I wouldn't I? So and you can still, even though it's you know, it's not designed to work that way, you can still lift the rocket up and have it sat in its firing position if you want to, although it wouldn't be in that position on its wheels anyway. So there we go. So that's been the build, total build, one video, start to finish, weathered. It's had no dry brushing actually, this model, but it's been washed, it's been weathered, it's had pigments, it's had paint, it's had varnishes, it's had decals applied, it's had the whole lot. So all in one video. Thanks for watching. If you've liked this video, please give me a like. If you don't like it, well, give me a like anyway. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do so. There's lots of interesting stuff coming up, and there's a lot of interesting stuff already there. And the next model you see finished on here will be the C141. That's nearly done now, and I'll hopefully get that finished up today, tomorrow, and have that one on for you. So again, thanks for watching, thanks for your comments, thanks for subscribing. I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.